Like, I'm a professional. I was thinking myself as a Formula One driver. You are the team principal. Do not fuck with my car. Let me drive that car. And that car is the whole commercial organization of a really successful company. Sales is like, no one says, oh my God, my kid is a salesperson, right? So I did all this stuff. It paid off, and then I'm miserable, semi-depressed, shouting to my kids, disconnected with my wife, toxic in my work environment. So I needed to redesign my life. I was way happier when, I was driving my Twingo with my wife, not even going through the tolls to avoid to pay €4 in Larissa to go to Volos. Like, you know what? Fuck that shit. Excuse my French, but fuck it. Doesn't worth it. Can you hold against me a lot of things? Obviously. And that's why most CROs do not even make it for 2 years, because that's it. It's like a football team. You bring a new coach, they win the championship, then the next year they lose the 3 first matches and they're out. But that's it. You change the coach. What are you going to do? Change the fans, the stadium, the ball? It's the coach. So it comes with a job.
Hello, I'm Aggelos, and this is the second act. I've known George since our 20s, back when we were both part of the early formed Greek startup ecosystem. We never really talked. We didn't really know each other. He was one of the cool startup guys that I was mainly watching from afar. 15 years later, now both of us hitting our 40s, we finally sat down to talk. And it wasn't just a small talk, but instead a deep and very open conversation. George has a particular bold Mediterranean way of expressing, which I also have, and he walked me through his path. Startups, CRO roles, VP gigs in scale-ups, and then burnout, a professional existential crisis, and now his third act. He spoke quite openly about the mess behind the titles, struggles that he had at work, inner conflicts, his therapeutic journey, and even the toll that this whole thing took on his own family. I must admit, this conversation made me feel a little uneasy at times, and the reason was that in George's stories and words, I actually saw a little bit of myself. So I'm pretty sure that when you watch this conversation, you might also find a little bit of yourself in this story. So, without further ado, here is George Gatos.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm George. I'm working currently as a partner at Accelerate Growth, which is a consulting firm focusing on helping companies increase their sales by either increasing new customers or increasing business from existing customers or solving commercial team related issues. But that happened very few months ago. So we're here, I guess, to talk about what made the decision for this third act. I know it's called second act, but in reality, in my professional life, this is the third act. So I'm happy to have the chance to tell my story and hopefully, help other people feel a bit better or a bit more positive about life.
Yeah. One of the things that attracted me a lot in your story and in the conversation that we had, and I know that might sound silly, but I think you will get it, especially you, because we come from the same culture. You are a Greek guy. You have an aggressive energy. Typically, these type of guys don't talk about vulnerable topics. We avoid talking about that stuff because it might sound I don't know, lame, shameful. We are behind an armor most of the times. So hearing someone near my age that I can identify with speaking openly about struggles, normal things that literally everyone is going through, made me feel both proud of you, but also a little uneasy in a way that I had to reflect.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the culture and your view of the world, I can get that. But yeah, I mean, look, when you posted about starting this series of interviews, I really identified. I said, look, this is great because I wish more people would talk about everyday challenges. I wouldn't call it vulnerability in a way, but just being transparent. And transparency is something I really like in people. I'm direct. as well. So, you're direct with good things. You should be direct in everything in your life. So I thought it would be very good to discuss about it and make it streamlined if possible, or make it a discussion. Everyone posts on LinkedIn about how great they are, how amazing they are, or some cringy stuff. It's good to have a discussion about, look, there are challenges and how you can overcome them, or as we do about our successes, right? So it should be balanced.
I don't remember your age. You must be near 40, right?
And a bit more.
A bit more?
And a
42?
bit more. 44. I
44?
just became 44. Yeah. So
Okay. I would swear you're like 39 or 40.
that's how I feel. So we agree on that.
You have done pretty much everything. You have run startups. You have raised money with startups. I don't know if you have sold startups.
Well, I mean, Incredibly was sold, but not in the TechCrunch kind of big headline, big exit thing. But yeah, it was sold at the end. And I
That's
was
cool.
advising another company, Viral Loops, that also got acquired. So yeah, I mean, I've been through an process, so I've seen that area as well.
You have been a VP in Workable, which is like huge. It's not even a startup anymore.
It's a
You have
scale up.
done your own initiatives. You have been in tech. Now you are near tech, but not necessarily. Could you give me a little bit of like a professional timeline? What
Yeah,
have you
sure.
done?
So I studied financial economics, and I start from there because a lot of us do not start our careers thinking, oh, I'm gonna do sales at the end. So I started doing financial economics, then I did some business for my master's, and then I had the opportunity to go to the States for a few months that almost lasted a year and a half, where I got, let's say, infused into entrepreneurship and how you take an idea to the market. And that's where it struck me, and I was like, this is what I want to do in my life. And then coming back to Greece for the necessary army duty and, getting your first job, I started with consulting. I found a boutique consulting firm in Thessaloniki, my hometown, where I focused on business plans. And back then, it was 2007. In Greece, we had a lot of companies emerging on mobile marketing and some other interesting companies that today are huge, like Viva. They started back then. I mean, they existed, but they were. I saw the business plan, the idea of what they became back then. So I had the opportunity, even in Greece, just before the crisis, to get exposure to the tech ecosystem. This is where I met the guys from Open Coffee. I loved the fact that there were people there talking about startups and business plans and technology. And I did the consulting part for 3 years. And then I knew that the cool kids are doing stuff, they're not consulting. So I met Adonis Fiorakis, who had the idea of Incredibly, an Airbnb for sailing vacations. Back then it was 2012. The marketplaces were, starting. Airbnb, Uber were already challenging industries. So he had this idea of creating an Airbnb for yachts. And he was like, can you help me? Can you consult? I was like, no, I love the idea. I sail a bit. Have a very good friend who has a sailing boat, so I enjoy this type of vacation. So I identified, I was like, I want to be a startup guy as well. So I went there as a co-founder, COO. We raised some money from Greece, from the UK, some notable investors like Seedcamp and Connect Ventures, an open fund from Greece, who was our first backer. And we did an incredible journey, had thousands of yachts, people were booking, and then 2015 happens, and that threw us off. And it's not, to be very transparent, it's not off that Greece had closed banks and people were stopping their vacation and canceling their plans to visit the country. It was also that it was an industry that the unit economics wouldn't work for a marketplace. And we realized that, and we sold it to a competitor. But before we sold it, I left because we did like 3 pivots. Actually, we did 2 pivots, and we were discussing a third that the market wouldn't validate. So that was my
What sort
off
of pivot?
time. So the first one was a pure marketplace. The second was like an Uber for yachts, in the sense not that I ordered a yacht, but it was simple as a tap. So we had itineraries, because what we found out is that a typical yacht charter company has like 90% of people who take a sailing boat bareboat, meaning they are the captains, they
Mm-hmm.
are the sailors. In our case, it was 50-50. 50% of people knew what they wanted and just found a better way to book it. And the other 50%, a lot of times, were first timers. So we made it accessible. And that was what intrigued VCs as well and us. We wanted to not democratize it in a way, but make it an option. Because when you rent a house, even in the early days of Airbnb, you know what to expect. When you charter a yacht, a sailing boat, and it's your first time, you have no idea. So there were very unknowns. Who will be my captain? Where are we going to go? What do you mean I need to pay petrol at the end? How much does it cost? How much does it consume? All that stuff were unknowns, and we tried to package all that stuff. But by doing so, because there's a lot of money that goes undeclared, you pay the skipper at hand, this is how the industry works, we became very expensive because everything had to be transparent and have taxes on top and everything. So while it made it even more attractive, it couldn't scale. And then the last challenge we had was that when you do it 1 year, you're not necessarily going to do it next year, because the group of people won't have the same priorities that summer or even vacation days aligned, or you really like the yacht you booked through us last year and now you go directly. So the unit economics didn't work. It was a great exercise. Unfortunately, no one cracked it. Like, if you see, we were one of the first. There was one Italian and one American company. All three of us had the first mover advantage. That there were like 20 more in the next few years that appeared. No one cracked it. But it was an interesting journey. But I was tired. And this is where the second act for me happened, from a consultant to founder to needing a job. So I took some time off. I got married with my back then girlfriend for like 6-7 years. We got married and I had to apply for jobs. And how do you do that?
Who was that?
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting for sure, because it was that consulting first job that I talked about was the one that I just find a job online and I applied. And then some intermediate gigs that I did before the Incrediblue, also it was through my network.
Mm-hmm.
So then I felt more comfortable going to my network. And because I was running Open Coffee Thessaloniki, I knew a lot of startup founders. Because I raised money, I knew a lot of people from similar portfolio or other VCs. So I had a really good network already.
Was there any shame?
It was. That
I'm a
was my
startup
biggest
guy and now I have to
challenge.
apply for jobs.
I'm the founder now, I need to be an employee.
Yeah.
So there was a struggle there. And not that I'm like, oh my God, I'm very humble, to be honest. I might not look, but I am. I have my feet on the ground and my head on my shoulders. So it wasn't that, but I wanted to be something inspiring. I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to see the rest of the journey. So I went to very successful companies that were more successful than mine, and I knew the founders, and I just made a few discussions, because what drove me back then was like, look, I managed to do the 0 to 1, but then it couldn't scale. In reality, from a tech company, we became an online yacht broker, which was what we were trying to disrupt anyway. So I want to go to a company where I could see the rest of the trip, the scale-up growth and probably the exit. And I was talking with Nico Moraitaki, the CEO of Workable, and we made a meeting, we caught up, and then he said, look, if I think about it, I'll let you know something. And he calls me the next day and he has like, look, George, I thought about it. We have this need to create a sales development team. Would you like to come and lead it? And I was like, Nico, what do I know about sales? He was like, you do it, but not structured. And it'll be a sales development team. So it's the team before sales, the one that brings the leads in, and you have the soft skills and everything, and you have the seniority to lead the team. So why don't you give it a try?
So far, what was your exposure? For example, in Incrediblue, were you mostly on marketing? Were you mostly on...
No, I was the guy who would go and find the yacht
the deals?
Operators, the fleet managers. So I would go travel to Turkey, to Croatia, to whenever off season, and go from marina to marina and try to bring the inside the fleet. I was also overseeing all the customer success. We didn't have sales, but in reality, all the inquiries, they were served. So it was sales in reality, but I never understood it back then. And have the soft skills and some basic intelligence, so I could really comprehend and read and understand what needs to be done. But I never considered myself as a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
I was chief operations officer because I thought this is operations. But in reality, it was revenue because you needed the yachts and you needed to service better people who were uneasy just to book a 3, 4, 5K holiday with a card in a new way of booking it. So I started as operations, but in reality I was doing sales. So I had like already 4 years of sales. And before in the consulting, also you had to sell the idea and the solution to the customer before you execute the project. So I've done sales like for 7 years in a row, but I never understood it.
So when Nikos tells you to join Workable to run sales, how is that for you? At least, how does that play in your mind?
Run sales development. He wasn't crazy enough to give me sales. He brought a proper sales leader. So look, my mom was a head of sales in a very traditional company. And my mom started psychology, by the way. So I knew what sales is, but including her, we always thought that sales is like, no one says, oh my God, my kid is a salesperson, right? And none of us chose this career. We all somehow landed. When I started financial economics, I wanted to be a stockbroker. I thought I would be a stockbroker. So starting as a sales development in a team of one, I went there for the journey. I'm more into like, if you find, a seat on a rocket ship, take the seat. So I had a role and a level that I didn't feel very comfortable with, but very quickly the team and the company realized what I was doing, and the new sales leader brought more know-how and knowledge and helped us all elevate. Therefore, the role and the title and the money followed. So the critical moment there, it was about me being committed to the opportunity, me being in love with the idea of what we can achieve there, and rather what my role and title will be. And that was one of the best bets, because that gave the structure and all the knowledge and experience greatness, because back then, and I'm sure today as well, but definitely back then, Workable had a really good group of people working there, or that they hired after me, who came and brought know-how. We had a very strong Boston office, so all this way of operating in the US got imported in Greece. And if you track the career of a lot of people that were back then and before me, as I said, or a bit after me, in Workable, you've seen they achieved a lot of good things, or they're still there, which tells a lot. So what, in terms of ego, seemed as, oh my God, like from a co-founder, with office in London and doing the right things and talking in the press and doing all the things to promote the company, obviously, but, being very exposed, I became a manager of one who didn't even want to be managed by me at the time, to figure out sales development of a SaaS company.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of the best moves, because before that I was shortlisted to become the general manager of a very, 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 very well-known application in Greece, and I failed in the last stage of the thing. And I was like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But that would tick everything. General manager, huge brand, offices, in a very prominent location in Athens. That was good for my ego. But I don't think it would be very good for my career afterwards. Maybe it would, but it would be a completely different story from where I am today. And I really enjoyed it. So the learning here is, on that pivotal moment of your life, go for potential, don't go for ego or what others will say, or even money. Obviously money is important, that's why you all work, but like a bit of money and a bit of title, if there's no upside, can be limiting at the end, or premature. Like earlier on, I was thinking the titles a lot, but maybe you want the title but you're not ready. And I've seen that in colleagues that are very dear to me who made that mistake. They pivoted to other companies sometimes prematurely to chase the title but couldn't support it. I'm not saying play it safe. As I said, I was the one who jumped on the rocket ship without even knowing what I'm able to do. But if I would chase the title and rejected that opportunity, I might have regretted it.
Have you overcome that feeling that this title or this thing is not cool? I have been in way cooler stuff.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I'll be lying if I say like I don't care. But it's not that important.
When you're talking, you're doing something that I do, and I kind of connect. Your brain is smart enough to keep the feeling at check, so you vocalize it. But the way you vocalize it makes me feel that you feel it. You just try by vocalizing it to tell yourself that this feeling is not okay, is not correct.
I don't know. Being connected with my feelings is something that I'm not excelling. So no, sometimes this is my default, to be honest. So I don't know. I don't know. It's a good observation, though.
You mentioned you mentioned before about your mom. You made a joke about no one's mom says my son is a sales manager, is a salesperson, and I found that interesting. I'm just connecting with you because I share exactly similar, and I have shared way more of that perceptions that the title, the role is also an identity, is who I am. And I was wondering when you were talking, what was back then your driver? Was it your bank account? Was it identity? Was it both? Would you pick a GM role that was extremely fancy with a little salary, or a totally uncool role with a bigger salary?
Look, my main drive was money.
Mm.
Money in the long term, though. So that's why stock options, for example, were important to me. Being able to save some money so I can invest and not depend only on my work to create fortune was also important. So, I mean, to be realistic, you couldn't get a GM role without a decent or good salary, and you couldn't get a that role with a good money. But in that extreme, I would go for the upside. The challenge I have, there are two things that you mentioned that I think worth sharing about me. The one has to do with why all these things were happening, and the fact that I grew in a certain way. My parents divorced when I was about to go first grade in high school, so I was 12, 13 years old back then. And any divorce can bring a lot of uncertainty and difficult situations in a teenager's life. The details do not matter, but in reality, I always had this sense that if I don't succeed on my own, there is no one there to make it happen for me. And I was an average student, a student that everyone would say he's a smart kid, but right. So I got this intention that I'm a bat, I'm a mediocre, and it was a true. And it took me years to find my calling and my passion. So I had this uncertainty that I'm nothing good at. There is uncertainty. There was a safety net. It's not that my mom had a good job, as I said. She was heading sales somewhere and more like a GM after some time. So there was certainty at home. It's not that, but there was not certainty in the long term. There was nothing, to in that sense to I didn't have a job to, be hired by my family or, a big network where I could do things. So I knew that I had to build something by myself. And the second thing was that I didn't want to feel like my mom, that if I lose my job, then how I'm gonna not feed my kid immediately, but how I'm gonna find another job, how I'm gonna support, how I'm gonna afford a lifestyle that is a normal lifestyle, nothing extraordinary. So these two things shaped the George in the age of 15. Then, if you can recall, because I'm a bit older than you, there was the golden age of the stock market, of the Olympics, of everything. So then as a teenager and young adult, I saw the extreme, and that shaped the reality of this is life and everything should be easy, and people are throwing money at you. And I couldn't understand because we didn't have that in my family, in my environment. So these two things made me very driven and made me feel that I need the title, I need the money, I need to work really hard, I need to prove to myself, to everyone else, and to be, the best. Because I love go-karts and Formula One, I was thinking that I'm like a Formula One driver. I need to do the same lap every time in the limit and being the best in a very competitive environment. And that made me thrive or do as good as I could at any given time. But that was the dream of the 15 and the 25-year-old George. Maybe the 35 too, but after 40, it started not being the dream. And this is where I think it makes sense to further expand the third act now. Because when I went to Workable, I was 35, 36, something like that, 2016 September. So we're almost, 10 years ago. So for biggest part of that decade, I loved it. It was great. It was the best thing professionally could do, because after Workable, I went to Toggle, which is an Estonian time tracking and productivity solution software company, fully remote before remote was even a thing. So the moment COVID breaks, I get fired from Workable because I was running a 75 people organization doing sales development in an industry that no one was about to hire in the next few years. So although I didn't like it, it was a reasonable thing to happen, which also took off my career, because from a VP, I got my first chief revenue officer role at Toggle. It was half the size of Workable when I joined, very similar to where Workable was when I joined. So I thought, you know what, I'll be the guy who takes from multiple million to tens of million the companies. I'll be doing that, and I'll make big money and have big teams and build stuff and retransform. And typically these companies attract really good people. So I have good people working with me. I'll learn, they learn, we make money. Awesome. And then when the opportunity came to Epignosis after almost 2 years at Toggle, I jumped to Epignosis, which was then at a later stage than Workable and Toggle when I joined, but with very similar experiences. I'm the guy. That's the third time I'm going to do it. That's my profession. That's my job. I love it. Let's go. And that happened as well. And, different challenges, different people, different companies, all of them, but with some common characteristics, like really good products, smart people, big markets, and then common mistakes or common challenges, which, if you have the playbook clearly, you cannot adapt. You need to adapt. You cannot just throw the same playbook. But, fix things. And that was great. And then it stopped being great, together with having 2 kids now and young kids, and without having grandparents in Athens, and not being able to take your wife just for a quick coffee or a drink or go to the movies for 2 hours. It started, the tension and what was going at home was starting affecting me internally, not my work, but me. And then the other way around, the tension I had from work started affecting life at home.
Give me a little bit the context here.
I joined Epignosis. Epignosis is a really great company, one of the largest SaaS companies in Greece, selling as most SaaS companies in Greece, mostly globally, creating a learning management system called Talent LMS, loved by like 12,000 companies out there, training millions of people every month on our technologies. So I went there and I was like, this will be the time I'll go to 100 million. And to me, that was the holy grail. 100 million, successful exit, significant stock options, that'll be it. After that, I'm done. I've done the idea to 1 million. I've done to several million to tens of million. Now I'm going to do the 30, 40 to 100 million story, big bucks, successful career. And then it'll be like 45 and work for the sake of it, because I love work. I cannot imagine myself go fishing, but have the luxury of not worrying about the money. So the 15 and the 25-year-old George will be very proud and happy, and the 45-year-old George can afford that extra little luxury that he didn't have, which I'm a bit stingy. So my kids would enjoy it. I would be like, yeah, it's okay. Let's buy it for the kids. I'm okay with that t-shirt that I still have from a decade ago. Anyway, that's the context. I go there, really good match with the founder and CEO and some people there. Actually, one of the people who brought me there, we used to work together at Workable. I found also some really good people from Workable there, and some other people that were there from the beginning. So it was a really good combination. People who knew everything and why, and then people who've seen other environments. And then we had to transform the company, because a company that benefited a lot because remote training was a thing during COVID, right? Exploded, had now post-COVID to kind of like reorganize and set the agenda for the future. And it's really interesting when a company does it really, really well. The resistance to change is even higher than when a company doesn't do really well. Anyway, amazing environment, really good people in transitional though period. And all of a sudden the CEO, like I was 9 months in the role or something, he says like I'm stepping down. Because he was there for 20 years and he was the
Personal.
founder CEO. Yeah. I think that's what he told us. Like he loves tech, he loves building stuff. He didn't feel that he's the right CEO to take the company to the next level. And I think that's a
Okay.
very brave thing and honest thing to do. So obviously he didn't step down the next day. They ran a process to find another CEO. And after 6-7 months, a new CEO was introduced to us. And as it happens with most companies, when you bring someone from the outside, it's a challenge. The good thing is that the way he was expressing and how he was seeing things, what the majority of senior management thought as well. So it was an easy transition. It was more emotional, the fact that the founder and CEO, Thanos, was stepping down. But in reality of what the business needed, all of us saw the opportunity that, a new person should make some changes that couldn't happen for multiple reasons. So it was welcomed, and the first 2 or 3 meetings were very promising. I remember walking outside the meeting, I was like, okay, it's gonna work. The guy listens and seems that he recognizes the challenge that we say for the business, so he's willing to take action. 4th meeting afterwards, something started feeling wrong. I have high emotional intelligence, therefore I can start understanding things. I'll give you an example. I remember it very, very clearly. That was the moment I met him, because I met him sooner than most of the company, because they brought him there to observe the first board meeting. He was starting that week for 3 months as like a consultant, and then we would announce it towards the end of that 3-month period to the rest of the company. So the senior manager knew. And we were in the taxi, and he knew how to read Greek. He was asking about me, my life, etc., etc. And I was telling him, and we had a casual conversation as two people knowing each other. And all of a sudden he says, I see this sign. This is what it writes. I said, yep, you're right. This is what it writes. Good. And then he started looking at us, and he wasn't listening to what I was saying. And this is tiny, but you can really start seeing little flags. But that was okay. I said, okay, the guy is a prick. He's arrogant. But it's okay. You know, CEO, typically they have inflated egos. I can work with the guy. So then the first few meetings were really good.
What was his background?
Worked in really big companies.
Corporate.
Yes. Tech, but corporate. And he has a really interesting story, and he told us about his upbringing, what he did. He really, you could really like the guy. And he had the CV, and the board chose him through recruitment process, which was very hard, and yada, yada, yada. So, there was nothing besides the little red flags that was more on intuition, rather facts. Everything seemed good. But then after the 4th meeting, and the fact that I shared with him stuff that he didn't even read, or he never got back to me, or that he started repeating the same jargon, and then people started talking, I felt a bit uneasy. Because there are two styles. There is this servant CEO, and then there is the emperor CEO. The emperor CEO is like, I'm the emperor, you serve me, right? The servant CEO is there to enable you. And we're okay, this is an emperor CEO. Still, if he lets us do the job, it'll be fine. But eventually it started being something more personal, and there were people in meetings being like, why he's so offensive to you, etc., etc. Because I have the directness that we said earlier, and a professional, let's say, set of rules that I go by, that I'm not rounding the corners, if I can use that term. I'll directly say, if you think you're an idiot, you'll know it. I'm not saying you're an idiot, but you'll understand that I feel that. So we started having a class. He started removing parts of my organization from me. He started having a secret agenda, and I started having a really hard time because my numbers also weren't good.
Mm-hmm.
And there were multiple reasons why my numbers weren't that good. These are very high growth environments, and it doesn't matter why I was not hitting my numbers. And it's not that I only was not hitting my numbers, I was also not in a position to forecast my numbers. So I got really stressed. I have this imposter syndrome anyway. So that started taking a toll at me on a mental state. First of all, most of these things that I just said had nothing to do with the person.
Mm-hmm.
because it just came. It was my professional struggle with the day-to-day stuff, with the fact that although I was applying the right rules, the results were not coming, the right playbooks, or I was lacking to communicate clearly because I started getting clouded judgment. And I realized that I was never trained to be able to navigate the boardroom or navigate the corporate world in how you can easily identify a problem, recommend a solution, and go build it, and then come back and report back. Most of the times, no one will remember. You've seen there are some people that they have this talent. Some of them are real, like they have the talent of doing that and then executing and coming back and reporting. And there are the majority of the people I met who come from corporate environments that they just spend a lot of time on how they're going to present, what they're going to do, cloud the thing, and go to the next board meeting. So I felt there were a lot of shortcomings, I think, that I had. As a CRO of a 50 million company, I think I was missing a couple of stuff. It wouldn't change the result per se, but it would make my life a bit easier to navigate and message up the right things. So in reality, it would have bought me a bit more time, or make me more diplomatic with the new CEO, but also with the expectations and how I communicate them to myself and to the others. So that was the very interesting time when I started being already stressed. There were some other things that it's not good to mention now, that were projects going on, etc. So I had a lot on my plate. Plus a new guy comes who we think is amazing, and then he's not. And then a personal, professional fight starts in a power play. So I started seeing a psychologist, which was great, because I started having so much pressure. I was very easy to get upset, and I had mood swings, and that had a toll in my family because my kids would do something or start shouting at them. And I mean, the things that they did, it would worth a shout, but not that time of that shout. Or if you're in a clear mental state, you wouldn't shout. You would use a different methodology. So my wife sat me down one day and she said, "George, enough." And I knew that that was the time I need to see a professional. So I went to the professional to start with this, how can I tactically do better? It helped a lot. But while this was happening, the challenges with the relationship with the new CEO were the ones that pretty much took all the session time and how to manage. But it was a really good personal development exercise because I learned to be a bit less responsive to my emotion, right? Or be connected to it, understand the root, the reality of it, and that the anger is the result of a different emotion. Would be sadness, or it could be disappointment, or it could be that 15, 25-year-old having expectations that are no longer serving me. Spending more time with my kids is more important than changing my car. So that was the pivotal moment where I knew that something is not sustainable. And I stayed with the company, although I was ready to quit. It was April 2024. I stayed until December 2024, but I knew by October that, that'll be my last year. And there was a silly excuse that we all agreed that that's the reality. And the company was really good with me. Like, they gave me what I should get and more, and enough time to think of what I'm going to do next. And then after my CRO engagement ended, I stick around part-time to help with the transition. So I have no reason to blame the organization. The amazing thing is that the guy got fired. Before my part-time contract ended, he got fired. So He lasted a year and a half. And that was a lot, to be honest. I think the board knew it earlier, but this is a very hard decision to make. And
the story that you share about this guy, it strikes me, but I might be just biased. It strikes me as a new guy comes into play, and there are two egos that are clashing, and I'm wondering about that.
yes,
You know what? I'm reflecting sometimes that one of the reasons that you're here and you're a successful professional being is your ego. So when you work on your ego, I don't know if you ever had that thought. If I soften my ego so that I don't have such problems, I also soften exactly the force that makes me successful. Sometimes even the imposter syndrome that you might be experiencing is the force that makes you successful. A lot of people that are successful need a little bit of that, because otherwise it doesn't make so much sense if you think of it. Like, what is the reason that we're doing all that? Unless proving something.
Look, I mean, I have an ego, right? Uh, I don't know if there is a 1 to 10 scale where it will be. Someone else should judge that for me. The problem is that this wasn't a clash of an ego. It wasn't like, oh my God, I wanted to be the CEO, which, by the way, if it was offered to me, I would have accepted. But you know what I mean? It's on that mentality of if you get that opportunity, you'll figure it out later. So it wasn't about like, oh my God, I wanted your job and you took it. That would be ego. Here was more like, I have a duty, I have a mission, and you're now preventing me from doing my job. And then after a while, you start compromising my position a lot, like hiring people who would influence the commercial department, who at the time was that team under me, without even telling me.
But that's not personal.
It's not personal. I didn't say it's personal, but one thing that people in sales and revenue organizations have is that you can measure their performance every minute, every day. There's nothing vague. You either hit or not your number. So when I have this pressure and then I'm not set for success, and even if I'm not set for success and I need to create my own success, I start getting obstacles, then it becomes personal.
Because you foresee that he creates conditions for you to fail in a few months from now.
Yes. And he was building a case against me that he could easily tell me, look, dude, I don't like you. You're out. That's honest. Like, as I tell you, when I got fired at Workable, it was like, sorry, dude, like the whole planet stops hiring people, and Workable back then sold only an applicant tracking system. We need to retain capital. It was honest. They didn't tell me you missed your number after 2 months because of a global pandemic, if you need to go. So pretending that everything's cool, or like, what else do we want to do in this organization? Nothing. I'm the CRO. We are executing my plan, right? And I need time to get the results. The greatest thing for my ego is that the guy got fired. So regardless what my ego or what I think, other people also saw it. And also that the action plans that we had in motion paid off later, not in the pace we wanted, not to the extent what we wanted. But if you see the company today, it's doing amazingly. So this is where trust in myself and in my team and in the vision that we had and the opportunity we saw comes, and softens the ego. And as I said, I'm very humble and down to earth, because in reality, there's a lot of process behind it. That was the anomaly that, in a sense, ruined the equilibrium we were trying to find.
Yeah.
And the outcomes talk about themselves. Can you hold against me a lot of things? Obviously. That's why we get the big bucks. That's why we have the C-level. It's not about the title. It's the amount of ownership and agency, and in reality, responsibility that you have to the organization. And that's why if you see most CROs do not even make it for 2 years. Thank God I made it almost 3. Because that's it. It's like a football team. You bring a new coach, they win the championship, then the next year they lose the 3 first matches and they're out. But that's it. You change the coach. What are you going to do? Change the fans, the stadium, the ball. It's the coach. So it comes with a job. The problem I had and why it became personal at the end, it was that, like, I'm a professional. I was thinking myself as a Formula 1 driver. You are the team principal. Do not fuck with my car. Let me drive that car. And that car is the whole commercial organization of a really successful company.
Let's go a little bit to the emotional toll that you mentioned. You mentioned that you started speaking with a professional. You mentioned some impact that it had to you, some impact that it had to to your home. I would like to understand what were you experiencing? What was happening aside from what you were reflecting outside? What you were experiencing? And of course, what was reflected? What were you thinking? Ultimately, I would like to have a little bit of a glimpse of what you were saying to this professional, but of course,
Okay, I always start with me. So I thought I was the problem in the beginning. I also try to answer that question. Is it my ego? Is it that in reality I wanted his job? Is it that I just don't like his methodology, which is different than what I see? So then we had to look at facts and specific things that happened to understand my reaction, but also understand what's going on. Also, we worked a lot on anticipating this reaction. Was one of the first insights and aha moments I got. Like, look, you're going to enter a meeting and he will try to pull your leg, or he will request something and then never look at it, and then 2 weeks later request something different, which in reality is the same with the other one. You have to anticipate it, so do not react to it. And in reality, it helped me kind of go and navigate and just ignore and do what I have to do and not be dependent. Another discussion was like, why do I need not his approval, but I realized that I always wanted approval, or not approval, but at least recognition. And how can I find that recognition, or why is that important to me? So I think we spend a lot of talking about the person, but he was never the problem in reality. It was a very small problem. It was a journey that made me realize that I started getting tired of being always responsible for if the numbers went good, why they don't get better. If the numbers went bad, why it didn't go worse. And also I made this realization that regardless of how good I'm doing, for whatever reasons, I might be redundant. And that if I had been on the decision maker side, I would have done pretty much the same. And that's what I want to stay from this discussion. It has nothing to do with the person, but the person was, let's say, the cherry on top, the tipping point.
That sounds like Hunger Games. It would make everyone anxious.
But I chose that. I found pleasure in this. I found meaning in this. The moment is that this probably was, and if we're doing well, I think everything will be fine. It was during a very hard time, which this is what I enjoy, to be honest. Like, I left Toggle because things were a bit more stable and in a way less of what I thought it should be and how we see the future. So I signed up for it. The thing is that in reality, it took a toll, because if everything was going well, or at least I got some more recognition, or I felt that my back is backed, I would be more focused and clear-headed. The moment then when you have a person that has doubts, because that's what I think we need to do, doubt everything. Not everything for the sake of doubting, but like if something is not working as intended, we need to understand, and then we doubt ourselves, like, did I make the wrong call? So if you have a lot of noise around that, it's a very fragile moment, I understood. So I signed up for something which is very demanding and very rewarding, to be honest, professionally, monetary, emotionally. But the moment that didn't go well for an extended period, it started having a toll. And as I said, even if I felt done right, for whatever reason, it could be gone in a minute. Because if I was doing really well, then I would have been an actual threat. So it could have been, if that person, for whatever reason, had a secret agenda, then it would be even, again, a challenge. So in reality, I understood that after a decade of being in 3 amazing companies, I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't have the stamina to go for a 4th one and do the same. And not the same, but you know what I mean. Like, go. By the way, a lot of people when I left Toggle said that when I joined, they thought I'm an asshole. And by the time I left, they said, like, when we worked with you and...
Yeah, Toggle has this no asshole policy, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they thought I am one.
They told me the same back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
everyone is an asshole for Togo.
no, they're not. But you know, it's a different cultural thing, right? And
Yeah, yeah, they're very.
remote work before remote was a thing for the majority of us attracted a certain profile of people.
Yeah, yeah.
So not being that profile clearly could raise a few eyebrows. And imagine also that I'm, as you said, Greek, loud. So
Yeah, the
that makes
loudness.
communication with Northerners even more challenging. I can just be talking and people think I'm angry. So people thought that I'm an asshole. And then by the end, when I left, they said, like, look, I thought you are one, but then I realized you had good intentions and I enjoyed working with you. So I kept a couple of screenshots because I got a couple. So when I joined Epignosis, I had that. So now that the other day I went out with a few colleagues to say our goodbyes, they said, when you did that presentation and you saw us this thing, I thought, what an asshole. And now, I met you, I worked for you, and I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot and all that stuff. And there was another girl that said, like, on Slack when she was saying her goodbye, she said, like, I never thought I would be the one writing on Slack, like, oh my God, I thought you're an asshole, but I'm really going to miss working with you. So I come across weirdly. So going to a fourth company and being perceived as an asshole who tries to reorganize things, bring changes, not shake up what works, but move it to another direction, do all this change management, do everything. So 2-3 years later, just to be failing or being fired or not being able to do the job or hating my job, I couldn't afford. And then it had a toll in my kids. I read something that you're wealthy when you can take a 3 p.m. break to go pick up your kid from school. And I was like, this is what wealth should look like in moving on. And don't take me wrong, I did well professionally. I invested, made some money as well there. So it's not that I'm starting how I started, with zero balance. I have created the luxury for myself to have some stability. So now I have the luxury to be more selective. And going to another great company, it would be amazing, but I wouldn't be able emotionally to support it. And then I also ask myself, why? Like the 15 and 25-year-old George is already very proud of George today. I reached to a level that, to be honest, I never thought I would. So in that sense, suffering and not enjoying life, what's the point then? Why did I do all these things? Why did I spend all these years building all that stuff if I'm miserable today? I was way happier when, I was driving my Twingo with my girlfriend, now wife, going to, low cost areas. Back in the day, not even going through the tolls to avoid like €4 to pay the toll in Larissa to go to Volos. But we had so much good time in Volos, not because I didn't have the €4, but I wanted to save money, to make calculated risk or stupid risks, but build something. So I did all this stuff. It paid off. I'm proud, and then I'm miserable, semi-depressed, shouting to my kids, being disconnected with my wife, being toxic at the end in my work environment. And then you take a minute to reflect, which was months, not a minute, and be like, you know what, fuck that shit. Excuse my friends, but fuck it, doesn't worth it. Because I want to be productive as long as I can. I want to be able to be meaningful, to create value. I was heading to a dead end, or I was already at that dead end.
Were you
To
talking to
design my life.
someone? Were you talking with? Were you talking to your wife? I would like to understand how did she help you?
Yes,
Or yeah,
we talked a lot. She's great. She has always been backing me up. She made different career choices so I can have the luxury, not because of me, because what she thought also is better for her at the time. But then we found a good balance where I would be the one being able to be away for a few weeks, visiting our office abroad, or staying up late to work, or when I had my own startup, supporting me emotionally and stuff like that. So we had this communication. And she was the one being like, you know what, fuck it, quit. I cannot see you anymore like that, quit. And anyway, so we were talking a lot about it, and she was supportive. She wasn't supportive at all when I had these anger issues, where talking to my kids, shouting at them. And don't take me wrong, having two kids is a challenge by itself, especially if you haven't gone to a movie or to a restaurant for months. And we did buy the support network. We have some really good people helping us, but that's something that's not flexible, or it stresses you a lot. Or my wife had to not to take, a day off, because also the lady who was there on call when our kids were sick, she was also sick because our kids, got her sick and stuff like that. So all these little things are a lot to take. A lot of relationships and marriages go through a difficult period just for that. Imagine also being unstable at work and being in a position where you're like soul searching what you're going to do in your life. Having your midlife crisis, and buying a sports car won't even solving it. So I didn't buy it. I looked at them, but I didn't feel it will give me the satisfaction. I was like browsing. I was browsing for a summer house. I was trying to find a way to, but in reality it just isolated me. It kept me distant. And I was home, I was looking at my phone, I was doing things that I'm not proud of. Not that it's anything extreme, but from how I think a parent should be nowadays, I wasn't that parent. I'm still not, by the way, but it's different being a good enough parent, which I think I can be, versus shouting at moments where you shouldn't shout, or not having the stamina to take them out for a while and just build memories together. So I was talking to my wife, I was talking, to other friends who have kids, I was talking to colleagues. They understood my environment and they had similar challenges. And all that led to the conclusion of, you know what? It's not the company, it's not that person, it's me. I need to do something. I need to have, again, control of my life, which I thought always I need to do. And then now I'm challenging that too. Like I just finished my second season for the summer, of psychotherapy. And I think one of the things I learned this year is that there's some things I cannot have control over, and that's totally fine. So let go of things, or not let them influence them. And these are really good things that I learned through challenges at work and not in personal life, because I think personal is even more complicated. Professional has an etiquette, has some rules. So learning about, emotions, and how, what the core emotion versus the surface emotion and all that stuff were really good. So in reality, all that discussion that we're having now, and the examples that I'm bringing, and the key incidents that resulted to me, were a gift. Clearly, I would prefer that I wouldn't have to pass through that gift, but I see them as one, because it gave me the opportunity, like being fired at Workable skyrocket my career in two more SaaS companies. Being fired from Epignosis made me now realize a vision that I had for quite some time. Makes sales craftsmanship a profession that people choose, not landing as by accident as I did and most of the people, and help companies that cannot afford hiring people like me, who are not in tech, or are in tech but early stage, get the playbooks, the processes, and everything to actually have value and get impact.
Before we move into this chapter, which is an extremely interesting one, and I have a lot of questions for you, what would you do different, especially in this last part, I guess?
To be honest, nothing, because this is how I am. I could have been less influenced emotionally. I could be a bit more distant to it. But in reality, it was going against my professional integrity, things that were happening. And that was the big struggle. But I could have done it in a way that doesn't take a toll. What I keep also is that my shortcomings, the ones I talked about, not being able to message up, not being able to reasonably provide a different approach But these are like details that would have made me a better professional. It wouldn't change the outcome. The outcome, I think, was pre-decided probably in that taxi that day, or after that fourth meeting, and that couldn't be prevented. So in that way, no, it wouldn't. But as I said, these are like the incidents. These are the tipping points. In reality, I think I would handle it better. Um, but yeah, I don't think I would be in a position to have developed myself and the way I operate and the way I express my emotions or do not express my emotions. I'm not mature enough on that sense. So I think it pretty much, regardless of tweaks, the journey would be that. And probably that was the time for that journey to come.
I was wondering while you were sharing your story, how things would be if you were exactly the same person, but you were a little bit more diplomatic, a little more polished.
I would have made some people's life harder. I think I made it too easy for them. So in that sense, I need to become a bit more diplomatic, and I'm doing it now as well because now I don't have a team that I set the vision until go execute, and that they're accountable. Now I'm in a position where, first of all, I have a customer, and then I need to be diplomatic and then adjust around them, and in reality, be able to help them have impact, but respecting stuff that when you're in house, not you don't have to respect, but I mean, it's how the engine works and whoever is where that allows you to move faster.
Well, what prevented you? What prevented you from being a little more diplomatic, more polished? I don't mean disingenuous. I mean less intense. What prevented you?
I think emotionally I was very fragile. I had a lot of anger inside me, a lot of anxiety. So it was very quick to escalate inside me. So I was struggling a lot. Also, I thought it was my fault in a way. It took me time, as a lot of things, to really understand. Because a lot of these things were intuitive. They were gut feeling. They were senses. There was just what we call experience. But then there wasn't some logic behind it to make me feel comfortable in the situation. So while I was trying to understand the situation and what it means to me and what are my options and all this financial implementation and what I'm going to do tomorrow and all that stuff, and should I stick here and fight versus do something else, it consumed a lot. So it was a lonely journey. Yes, I had some very trusted colleagues that I would discuss it, but at the end of the day, you had to show up because I had a team depending on me, do the job, have the stress, miss the number, or win the number there but miss it somewhere else, or delay this, or report something wrong, or report something that the data was wrong, or whatever. So I mean, you had so much day to day. You had this pressure. You had also this life soul searching moment. You had anxiety at home, or a situation where you're not happy with how you show up at home. So you're not happy with how you show up at home, show up at work. So yeah, becoming more diplomatic, I think that was like a wishful thinking. It was a unicorn status. Well, more about surviving the day, to be honest. And you talk to a guy who loved his work, and I'm very driven by myself. So if that happened to me, I cannot imagine what happens to people who are more in a job that they need to do because they need to pay the bills. I mean, I'm doing the job to pay the bills as well, but I enjoy doing the job.
I will not pretend that my question is easy, but I was wondering why couldn't you detach emotionally from that and keep the drive, but
Do you
just
have
not
a
be
what
so
do you
close to that?
I was saying, do you have a tip? Because I don't know. Look, remember, it was personal. I had my self worth attached to
Mm.
the outcome.
Mhm.
I was the guy who comes, builds, takes the hit, empowers the people, And then when there is chaos, I can see a way to navigate. And that brings the outcome, and the outcome brings more challenges. And then I'm like a junkie for that. So the situation was ruining that tendency. What I felt is what I'm built to make and to do. And this is where I thrive, and this is where I enjoy it, and this is like a pot of gold in the end of the rainbow. The problem is that the rainbow wasn't always there, or it was hard to
I
find
am
the end of it.
I am seeing that a lot, and I have been there, and I probably still am there. People attaching their self-worth to something that they cannot entirely control.
Couldn't control anything in reality. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Isn't that a little bizarre? Like attaching your self-worth to something like the market. The market changes, the businesses change.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, now that we're discussing, like, duh. But
Yeah.
were you into it when you have convinced yourself that this is how my worth is measured? It's insane. And this is where I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Because even if I do well, a pandemic starts, or they bring another guy who doesn't happen to like me and I like him. And that ruins everything. And you're like, this is completely out of my control. And the market changes is part of my job. I run the whole revenue. Like, if the market changes, I need to see it. So with that, I'm fine. That's why I got okay with that. That's why I sound a lot of times as having excuses, but in reality, it's not an excuse. It's how I take in everything and just loudly express my fears or thoughts or guesses, which, by the way, something I learned at Aggelos is that, no, you keep it for yourself. Talk about not what you see and what you're afraid of. What are you going to do about it?
I laugh a lot recently with, and I'm pretty sure you might have seen something like that in the sphere of LinkedIn. People doing something, enjoying their first success in life, which you already have experienced, and thinking because they have a boost in self-worth in their first success that they are doing something better than other people that after 10 years of enjoying success, they're not enjoying it anymore. Being a little ignorant that it's also a matter of luck, really thinking superior and flexing a lot. Have you?
LinkedIn is a weird sphere, right? Everyone is super great, amazing, etc. I recently started being very active there because I'm selling a service now, so people need to have top of mind my brand and me if they need something sales related. So I get it. I try not to sound cocky. I try to use real examples, and you see that the posts that have more broad and more actionable stuff perform better. But it's part of my job. It's a lead magnet for me now, and that's why I was very quiet while I was in house. I was heads down. I wasn't building a brand. I wasn't doing anything. I was working there. So yeah, I mean, people are ignorant, or people want to flex, or whatever. It's okay. To me, one of the funniest things is that I've seen people becoming very successful because they were in the right time, in the right moment. Congrats. And I've seen people not feeling successful or not succeeding yet because of other circumstances, but both didn't really have control besides choosing to be on that boat. And I never thought I'm successful. I mean, after some years, I started feeling, I've seen that I trust myself. So I didn't have self-doubt in the sense of, if I understand something, I can work with it. So I started working on my due diligence process and why and how to take a decision or not. I felt successful in that way, that I now can rely to myself, and that there are results after all this hard, quote unquote, work. So yeah, people can flex. I don't know. As I say, especially in my field, it's a very small world, so people will know eventually, or can really check who you are. There is a guy who is laughing always on my posts. I don't know why. Like he does that funny thing. I'm talking about something serious. He always funny. And he's young and probably he does something with AI and outbound and stuff like that, which I have a lot of question marks there. So I guess he's challenging me. I don't know. I don't pay too much attention on social media. Yeah.
Let's move to the third act, or the fourth one.
The third.
Growth, VP, Chief Growth, SaaS, Tech, super cool. Before that, co-founder, super cool. Literally, you said that the cool kids are in startups, not in consulting. And after this big journey, you go back to consulting, but not even consulting. The part of the consulting that was extra uncool for you, the sales consulting.
Yes.
So you are literally doing the least cool thing according to you.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm not a kid anymore. so even if I was starting a new startup, I wouldn't be a cool kid. I would be a cool dad. Not even cool, just a dad. So look, I really thought about it. I had three options. One, join another role. I told you. Although I had some early discussions, I couldn't support it. The other one, I had a startup idea. I tried to find a technical co-founder from my network who I trust or I have worked with. And even part-time, they weren't willing. We all now are in that I have also family kind of moment. So no weekend, no night, and very busy full-time job. So I couldn't. I found some cool guys to help me with the prototype and stuff. But again, it would be a co-founder. It wouldn't be a 12 at night release. So we take that meeting the very next morning and win a customer. And I have a very demanding financially way of life with two kids going to school and all that stuff. So I didn't feel secure, although I love the idea and I still believe it, to jump in it immediately or raise money, etc., because as you said, one of the parameters, as I said, one of the parameters is to be more with my family. So startup without a co-founder and paying it by yourself, no way means more time with my family. So the third thing, which also I really liked, was like, let's democratize sales. And the reason why we said that was that I truly believe that once you've been through sales and you've done a career, it's an amazing professional to do. Even with AI, it will be in high demand for at least a few years. It has good payouts and allows you to work with very cool companies. So I think people should get better processes, better tools, and better knowledge of how to do it. And I have been through greatness in three amazing companies. Forget my previous own company and consulting experience. I've been part of doing amazing things in three scale-ups, and I knew by also meeting Fanny's, my partner now at Accelerate Growth and former Carriera co-founder, Carriera GR, the job listing site of Greece, who was later acquired by Career Builder, where he stayed for 10 years to run sales in Europe. We both seen how sales should be done, and then we can give it, to organizations who wouldn't afford to hire these big teams, have these big marketing budgets, have these expensive tools, but still help them go from 0 to 1. Because it's like football. These SaaS companies playing Champions League. We're talking about smaller leagues now that they're doing really well. They're expanding, they're growing, but do not have the budgets to do sport in that level. So the vision was, first of all, instead of just going freelance, both of us, to create a company, to productize the services, be able to hire more people, get more partners in the future, create maybe a training platform, because we're not in the training industry, but we want people to learn the basics and design systems and processes that make sales scalable. And that's what is missing from the majority of the businesses out there. Early stage tech, but also traditional companies, which is like 95% of the business out there. So that was the need. So there was a clear need. We had a clear product. We have expertise in the domain, we have a network of people, so it was a no-brainer. So now that's act number 3. I have the privilege to do something that I like, and also 3 p.m. pick up the kids from school. So I think for where I am, it serves me well. I'm not saying that in the future I might not join another company or create a tech company or whatever, but I see myself as an entrepreneur now again, not a consultant. It happens that I'm an entrepreneur in the consulting industry. There is a huge opportunity and gap there that I want to capture. And it brought peace in me. I still have the question marks, the challenges, the imposter syndrome that never stops. But at least now I have more control, and I also pay more attention to what I do not control. So I can put my energy where it worths it. I try to be more present at home, connect better with my wife and my kids, and enjoy life a bit more. I think I had this syndrome that I thought life should be hard. Life should be not a punishment, but you work, and someday you will benefit the fruits of your efforts. I started doubting a lot of these things that I thought or I was told that this should be life. So yeah, that's the third act.
Theoretically speaking, you went from jobs to participating in a business, in a consulting business where you are being, as you said, an entrepreneur in the field of consulting. And that for a lot of people, if we see it from a distance, would seem scary because being in an employed situation at a job is safer. That's one. And the second thing is that you went from a long career into B2B SaaS companies, to companies. Maybe digital companies, maybe not digital companies, maybe SaaS, but not necessarily, which a lot of people are also seeing as scary because I know SaaS. What will I do in another industry? I will have to start from scratch. I will have to only use 10% of the skills I have. So from a purely theoretical standpoint, you did something that you label as peaceful that has a lot of, I wouldn't call risky, but I would say uncharted waters.
Remember I told you I thrive in chaos? Jokes aside, it's a challenge, but it was very easy for me to see it. That imagine out of the 3 scenarios that I told you, go back to a SaaS company in a C-level role or a GM role. I was also considering that as a transition to starting my own company, to doing what you just said. The third one was the easiest for me. The rest, like the hardest, was to go back and do exactly what I knew how to do. And that has to do with the burnout and all the things we discussed. And I was discussing with my therapist about that. And I had some concerns. Is it scalable? Will I find enough customers? Will customers pay me significantly for the value that I give? Will it be cool, right? At a party, I'll be a sales consultant versus chief revenue officer. You know what I mean? And all that stuff. And these are honest human questions. And he asked me the following: George, what happens if you start, and what can happen in 2 years? And I told him what I think will happen in 2 years. And he said, and how do you feel now? And I said, amazing. Because I said in 2 years, I have a lot of customers making X amount of money. My services are productized in a way that allow me and other people who will be working for me and with me to give quality. It'll be a boutique, meaning that I won't have to work with people that I don't believe I can help and all that stuff. And if I'm at a party, I'll be very excited to talk about all this stuff. And he said, there you go. And that was like that. That's what I want. That's what I need. At this time of my life, that's what I need. I need to set up a company where the product has a market, that I see an opportunity, and people get value, give me money, and they're happy. And I'm already a few months in, and you cannot imagine how people leave a workshop or see the sparks in the eyes when they get inbound leads, when they were struggling with outbound, or when they start an outbound campaign where they thought it's not possible to do, and they see. And this is fundamentals. It's the basics. It's a lot of things that tech companies already have before I joined them. And we make efficiencies, optimizations, and we complicate things, and we big tech stack, and diminishing returns kick in, and you have problems where you can spend as many millions you want on Google and still you won't hit your numbers because there are not enough people in the world searching for that solution that day or that month. And you go back to the basics and you make such an impact to people, and they say thank you, and they're commended to their network. And you're like, oh my God, that's peaceful.
Rewarding.
Really. Yes, I was making big bucks. Sometimes I'm not be making that kind of money, but I have the potential to make way more. But it's not about money. Clearly, as I said, I have 2 kids in schools, and I want to take vacation. I want to live as not a normal person, because normal persons unfortunately struggle a lot, but I want to live a comfortable life.
You mentioned that now you do something and it is rewarding. People are happy. And when you are for many years in a very saturated industry like B2B SaaS, you almost, I feel, please confirm me if you share the same feeling. You lose reality check of how service market fit feels like. And you might be like, it's not supposed to be like that. I need to keep fighting until, you lose sense that if it's not like that, it's wrong, because it's extremely saturated and it's very hard for everyone. So you get what I mean?
You're right, because look what happens. You are typically VC backed, or even if
Yeah.
you're bootstrapped, you have your board, your CEO has friends in other companies, in other boards. And you know what's going on. You know the benchmarking. You know the 40 rule, the rule of 40. You know what growth looks like at every ARR level that you have. You know all this stuff. So you compare a lot. And you read a lot, and there is data, and there is a lot of noise. Some is true, which is not. Like Lovable said, it took them 8 months since relaunching anyway to reach 100 million, and you're like, dude, we're like 15 years business and we're halfway there. You know what I mean? So you have all this noise, and then you have a lot of data internally. You know where your leads come from, how much it costs, which rep does what self-service does, what sales does, what customer success does. So you know everything. So you get obsessed. Get performance out of all these things. And don't take me wrong, if you search, you'll find people never be good enough. They're great, but they're not good enough because you read, you hear, you've seen somewhere else, someone doing it better, faster, quicker. So you have this bubble with a lot of resources, with a lot of smart people, with a lot of competition, with a lot of data, and people asking simple questions. So why can't you do more? And that makes you have a completely different reality. As I said, it's Champions League. It's like professional athletics, Olympic medalists.
Yeah.
If someone is doing, I don't know, let's say like Tendoglu, for example, right? That he jumps. Imagine going to train that guy versus a kid who is winning local competition.
Yeah. Very hard to impress.
I'm not saying that I'm so capable to train him, but the environments I've been, trained some of his competitors at least. And now I need to train someone else.
Yeah.
Of course he will be happy, and I will be happy, because we start from the basics. We build the foundation. We do right things that these companies either did right early or too big to change. And that's enough, and they're happy.
You literally follow business basics here. You took some extreme knowledge from Champions League, and now you're bringing it down to make other people also Champions League. It just makes sense.
Or if they're hobbies, which in business no one is hobbies, but you know what I mean. If they want to be in a certain level to have a good business and be comfortable and not get killed by the competition, you make their life easier. And the thing is that it's not common knowledge. It's something that people did in a very competitive environments. And now you're trying to get the applicable elements, because sales and all these revenue generation systems are transferable, and you upgrade companies that wouldn't have the exposure. It's like, again, Formula One that I love. You see a lot of technology being tested there, and then they are in your little city car 10 years later. And that's what we're trying to do. Get what it was, oh my God, Predictable Revenue, the book that it was in the late 2010, 12 that it was first published, I think, and talked about how sales was created inside sales team, and that was the go-to for over a decade until AI came. It's now the same. You go about and you build that system adjustable for this, and it's amazing. So you upgrade companies, businesses, and how they sell, how they operate, how they compensate people. And as I said, you give people skills that are transferable to another company. So therefore, especially since we're focusing now in Greece and Cyprus at the moment, we're improving economies that need a boost wherever they can, because we're really good in producing services, products, software. We're horrible at selling it. Well, it's inspiring. That drives me. And people pay me for that. I mean, come on. And so I'm not settling for less. But to me, it made total sense. And the first interactions proved me right. So the 44-year-old George has now an agenda for 2030, an agenda that is more flexible and less eager to prove something or less intense in the way that everything needs to happen now. And I read a book about it where it says that in Western world, we have this philosophy that things need to happen in KPIs and hit it or miss it, whereas in Eastern philosophies, they say it's like a river. The river flows, and if you need to direct the river, maybe you need to take some actions, but the river has already a path and it will flow. Yes, sometimes we have more water, sometimes less, but in reality, you cannot change the river, but you can flow on it or try to do something with its flow. And that struck me. And this is how I'm trying. I'm not doing it. I'm not that zen and cool, unfortunately. I'm the opposite. I'm very Western in the way I think. But in reality, that was an aha moment as well. Like, look, things will happen. I don't even know if I'm going to be around tomorrow or like in 5 years. Eventually, let's go with the flow. So I mean that let's go with the flow. I joined the business. We're growing the business. I'm doing really impact. I'm making some good money. I'm going to take my kids and wife and go on vacation tomorrow for more time with less pressure. And I think that's something that I should see as 360. And this is where the boundary between life, professional, personal, stuff like that becomes even less clear. So yeah, I hear myself saying these things, sounds better than it feels. But that's where my attention is now. That's where I'm trying to succeed professionally, but also succeed personally, and without compromising.
You mentioned the Eastern philosophy, the flow, and I totally agree with it. But it seems like it's easy to say, but hard to integrate and feel.
Yes.
So how are you moving from saying it to living by it?
To be very honest, I'm not living by it, right? I would be lying if I would say I live with it. But at points of reflection, I think about it. Like, is it a KPI that I'm chasing, or I'm, going with the flow? Am I trying to influence a river? Because guess what? The river doesn't give a shit about what I'm trying to do. So in that sense, when I reflect, I think about it. The other thing I told you is about having control. Like, I was a control freak because this is how I thought I would survive. If I control everything, and doing nothing is also a way of control, right? Or sticking to something when it doesn't serve is a form of control, because the uncharted waters, as you said, won't have control. Even my choice of the three was have more control. So letting go of control, or being comfortable with the fact that I have the sense of control, but I not necessarily have control, it's something I'm trying to learn to do. So I'm not living by it. giving it a try, or at least have it somewhere in my brain, not on the reflexes, but on the second view of a situation.
Yorgo, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
It was a very enjoyable conversation. And ultimately, that is the essence of what I want to do.
Cool. That's what I thought when I read your post.
At the core, at the exact core of what I want to do. And you embody exactly what I want to bring out there.
Yeah, I think it's very human what's going on, and it's okay to talk about it. And as I said, I don't think I'm anything different or better or whatever, but, I struggled to succeed a few things. I succeeded, and then I suffered with the success and other things as well. So it's totally fine to talk about it, and I think it's really good for people to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, is there another option? And if so, great. If not, at least they know.